at quarter still, isn't it?
Yeah, I don't know which one it is. You want to be done?
No, you can be over there. Yeah, it's
So they assign your sleep.
Here we go. It is brief, but it's important. Here we go. Volume. Here it goes.
Welcome to Boston
Ooh, that's
Duck
loud.
Tours. To ensure that you enjoy your
I love this,
culinary
they'll put it
tour
on
of the city,
shoulders.
please direct your attention to our brief but important safety
See, told
announcement.
ya.
Please remain seated and keep your arms, legs, head inside the vehicle at all times.
All right, welcome aboard. Thank you very much for being here on this very, very historic expedition. I am the world famous Boston explorer, Dr. Benjamin Avery Ware. My friends, you can call me Ben. Ben everywhere. And I have been everywhere. I have traveled as far east as China. Town. I have stepped foot on the sandy shores of Jamaica. It was actually Jamaica Pond. It's about a mile south of the Prudential Center. That's our picnic here. I highly recommend it. I have traveled as far west as Fenway Park. Only to realize that even though I'm a world famous Boston explorer, I am only a Boston explorer. Unlike this gentleman right here that came all the way from Gonzales, Texas to be here in the store, I have never left the city of Boston. Why? Because I am deathly afraid to travel. And I get lost everywhere I go. As a matter of fact, if it weren't for this young lady right over here directly to my right, we wouldn't have even left the duck stop. Directly to my right is the bravest woman that I've ever known, our driver, our captain, our urban guide. Round of applause for Captain Kim. All right, now, Kim's going to drive us around town today in the perfect vehicle to do so, the DUKW. And why is it the perfect vehicle to do so? Because it goes on land and it goes on water. Right now, we're actually doing both. About 60% of what we drive on today is man-made land. If the streets in Boston are long, straight, flat, and wide with 90-degree turns, it used to be water. If the streets of Boston are hilly, twisty-turny, and the roads make no sense, like GPS would go there to die, that is the original Shawmut Peninsula. Now, some of you look a little bit confused, but don't you worry. I am a highly trained professional, and I came prepared. We have two Street, and I know what you're thinking. It doesn't look like the thin nickel land that we're working out. Thanks for noticing. At high tide, this was underwater, making this an island. At low tide, you can walk across it, making it a peninsula, and it's called Shawmut. When the Puritans originally settled here in 1630, 400 people, 1.5 square miles of land, plenty of room. By 1830, this was the second busiest shipping port in the world, and there were 400,000 people on this island. It was the #1 most populated place on the planet. The rich people were leaving the island, going to the mainland. We didn't want to lose their tax dollars in the city, so we filled in the water around the island, and we made the city bigger. Long, straight, flat, and wide used to be water. Got it? All right, today we're going to be talking about the 3 F's: freedom, first, and fun. Freedom. Boston is the birthplace of the American Revolutionary War. As a matter of fact, I'm going to walk right over that way, right there. First, Boston being a 400-year-old city, we had a lot of very important firsts that happened here before they happened anywhere else in all of North America, and this is where it gets interactive. I'm going to list off a bunch of things that we invented in Boston. I want you to raise your hand if it's something you enjoy. We invented jelly beans, Junior Mints, Tootsie Rolls, chocolate chip cookies. I love chocolate in general. Yeah, we didn't do that one. But we did have the very first chocolate factory, 1782. It's called Walter Baker Chocolate. We also had the very first paid fire department, and my personal favorite, the very first building code. I know, most people don't like building codes, I get it. But I like this one. You know why? I can't believe they took the time to write it down. It's a thinker. 1631, the very first building code in all of North America. You couldn't build a house with a wooden chimney. Led directly to the first fire department, and I think they celebrated with chocolate. All right, so we got freedom, we got first, and the third after today is fun. You guys want to have some fun?
Yeah.
All right, that's an easy one. People are going to quack at us. What do? You quack back. But we don't want to just randomly quack at strangers. No, we don't want to look silly. We're going to work together as a team. And how do we do that? Very simply, I say the words tally-ho. Look at those people right there. They need to quit quacking. I say tally-ho, you say quack, quack. You got it? Tally-ho! Oh my God, wasn't that fun? Look, you just totally made her day if she works here. That's just weird. All right, let's try it again. Tally-ho! Quack, quack. All right. right, now we got to go over safety real quick. Over by here on the right-hand side, we got life jackets. These life jackets right here for little people. I'm not here to judge. You guys decide. Little people on the right, big people on the left. I have a throw ring here. There's a throw ring in the back. Fire extinguisher here. Fire extinguisher in the back. Remain seated at all times. Keep everything inside the vehicle at all times. There is no smoking on board. And in the case of emergency, our exits are everywhere. You got that? All right, that's the pre-recorded safety speech. So we're good to go. Let's clap. Counting. Oh! Nicely done. My job is to point at old things. Your job is to go moving on. Look, it's old.
Wow.
Okay, none of you did that right. We're not doing that. That building that I just pointed at right there, that is called the Old State House. That was built in 1713. That is the seat of the colonial governor, that seat of the colonial government. That is where the king's governor collected the taxes, made sure the laws were followed. That building is the oldest public municipal building anywhere in the United States of America, built in 1713. Only 500 feet away, can't see it right now because there's buildings in the way, but we're going to drive right past it later, Faneuil Hall. That was the cradle of liberty. That is where the Sons of Liberty got together, debated whether or not they wanted to leave the King of England. I'm going to tell you all about that later. Coming up over here on the left-hand side, let's see, what do we got going on? We got a restaurant that went out of business. Never went there, but wanted to. Wolfgang's Wiener, never heard of the guy. For my criminals on board, look to your left. If you look down this alleyway, a lot of criminals on this one, please. Look down this alleyway right here. There's going to be a sign that says 15 Ford Square. That is where Charles Ponzi invented the Ponzi scheme. That's for my criminals on board. For my pirates on board, take a look at this construction site right here. You see the bricks down at the bottom of the foundation? That building looks like it was built in the mid-1800s, but the foundation was actually from the late 1600s. That is the oldest courthouse and jail in the city of Boston. And back in 1704, half a dozen guys were found guilty of piracy in that very building. They were brought to Boston Common and they were hanged for piracy. Coming up over here on the right-hand side, we've got a guy texting on a scooter. That's not smart. Beyond that, there's a big gold steaming tea kettle. That tea kettle has been there for 150 years. That is the oldest animated sign in Boston. Up until a week ago, that was a Starbucks. Anybody that I know, right? America runs on Dunkins. Get rid of those Starbucks. We don't need them anymore. Yeah, there used to be 78. Now there's 77. All right, but that Starbucks is gone right now because on the other side of that, there's a Dunkin' Donuts literally right next door, and there's another one right over here, another 100 feet away. Yeah, they were surrounded by Dunkins. But I want to talk about that gold steaming tea kettle. It's been there for 150 years. That is the oldest animated sign in Boston. People came from all over the world. They didn't know how to read, write, or speak English. How would you find the tea? Look for the tea kettle. That used to be the Oriental Tea House. Now, if this light never turns green, I could do an hour-and-a-half tour in this intersection. We are literally surrounded by history. Over our right shoulder, there used to be a newspaper called the New England Courant. It was owned by Ben Franklin's brother. Over here on our right, we have 7-Eleven. That used to be a burlesque hall where Abbott and Costello did Who's On First for the first time ever. On our left-hand side, take a look at this doorway. It's at Tremont Street. That was a hotel back in the 1700s, and George Washington stayed in that hotel 1 week after becoming president. Coming up over here on our left, we have the oldest thing in Boston. It's called the King's Chapel Burying Ground. When the Puritans came here in 1630, the first thing they did was they died, and that's where we put them, right there. Thank you. That one gets two different reactions. Some people laugh, some people roll their eyes. A third reaction will be included on the boss, which is completely inappropriate. That's just a vent for the subway. No dead people. Just a vent for the subway. Yep. People look down into that whole thing. They're expecting to see bones and stuff, but it's like every once in a while a train goes by and it blows wind up, and they're like, the sound of the train. Yeah. On our left-hand side is a truck. It's big. It's blue, it's white, it's green. It's got a little bit of a gray to it, actually. I don't know. On the other side of that, there's a building. It's a church. It's called the King's Chapel Church. That is the oldest granite building built anywhere in the United States of America. It was built in 1750. Up at the bell tower of this church is the largest bell ever cast by a pole over here. Coming up over here on the left-hand side, we have the Omni Parker House Hotel. That is the oldest continuously operating hotel in America. Malcolm X was a busboy at that hotel. Ho Chi Minh was a pastry chef there in 1911 and 12. John Wilkes Booth stayed at the Omni Parker House Hotel 8 days before shooting Abraham Lincoln, and I went there for my birthday because they invented Boston Creek coffee. That's what I wanted for my birthday. On our right-hand side, we have the Granary Burying Ground. That is the
You've been
who's who
there,
of the American Revolutionary War. In this burying ground, 3 signers of the Declaration of Independence: John Hancock, Sam Adams, and Robert Tree Payne. Right next to Sam Adams, the 5 victims of the Boston Massacre. All the way in the back is Paul Revere, James Otis, There's our first cough kit. All right. I've been coughing like mad today. I have 4 tours today. They're all sold out. We'll see how that goes. Don't worry, you're good.
Do you remember
it's not
how you
contagious.
got it?
Yeah, just kidding.
That's what these things are for. Just testing me. Where was I? Oh yeah, James Otis, the man that said taxation without representation is tyranny, is also buried here. And in the center there's a tall obelisk that says Franklin on it. Now Ben Franklin was born about 2 blocks to our left, but he is buried in Philadelphia. Does anybody know who that Franklin is?
His parents.
I'll give you musical hints. You ready? R-E-S-P-E-C-T.
Aretha?
No, not Aretha. She's in Detroit. Correct. Okay. Respect your elders. That's Ben Franklin. Nicely done.
High five a lot.
You had it right.
Yeah, it is actually Ben
I
Franklin's
believe
parents.
him because he knows more than I
Hey, you never know. You never know. Nicely done, though. Where are you guys from?
do.
Here.
Oh, you're locals.
Our first time here, though. They're not.
This is
They're
about my
here
mom's
because of us.
Indiana.
Oh, where are you guys from?
Indiana.
Indiana?
Yeah.
Oh my God! The only thing I have from Indiana is Larry Bird, number 33.
Yes.
Just like the USS Constitution, 33 and 0. Yep, yeah, never lost a battle.
Right.
And I used to date John Cougar Mellencamp's drummer's ex-wife.
Really?
Just the little things. Over here on the right-hand side, Boston Common. Boston Common is the oldest public park in America. It was established in 1634, but it was originally settled in 1625 by one man, a man named Reverend William Blackston. Reverend William Blackston moved here all by himself in 1625. That monument that you're taking a picture of right there, that's called the Embrace. That's Martin Luther King and his wife Coretta Scott King after he won the Nobel Peace Prize. It's there because right next to it there's a bandstand called the Parkwood Bandstand, and that is where Martin Luther King gave a speech in 1965 to 22,000 people in the rain. So Reverend William Blackston moved here in 1625 all by himself. He was originally part of a settlement about 10 miles south of here called Wessagusset, but the Wessagusset settlement failed. Everyone went back to England. Reverend William Blackston didn't want to go back to England because they had a thing called smallpox. So he moved over here to the Shawmut Peninsula all by himself. He actually went up to the Native Americans, the Algonquins, and said, "Would you mind if I live here?" And they said, "Sure, we just use it for hunting and fishing in the summertime. We live in the Great Blue Hills about 4 miles west of here." For those of you that don't know, Massachusetts, if it's broken down, Massachusetts is people of the Blue Hills. Or Mass's Great Blue Hills. Yeah. So, sorry about the coughing, folks. I just recently got out of the hospital, and my immune system is down, so I've got this really bad cough right now. It's not good. Alright, so, Reverend William Blackston lived here in 1625. He built himself a cottage, he planted a garden, and he planted the very first apple tree in all of North America. 5 years later, John Winthrop, a Puritan, leading a group of Puritans, settled over in Charlestown on the other side of the river, but the water was salty and brackish. They couldn't live there. So John Winthrop went up to the Native American and said, "Dude, I got 400 Puritans, I need some fresh water, where can I find it?" And the Native American, the Algonquin, said, "Oh, you need to go to the Shawmut Peninsula because Shawmut means land of living waters. There's a very large freshwater spring over there, but you got a problem. There's a dude that lives there, he's an Anglican, and he don't like Puritans." And John Winthrop was like, "Really?" Like, oh, I hope this doesn't last all night. All right, so John Winthrop walks up to Reverend William Blackston. Now, here's an interesting fact. As I mentioned earlier, Puritans and Anglicans, they don't get along. But John Winthrop, a Puritan, Reverend William Blackston, the original settler, was an Anglican. They knew each other from college. Try to picture this. You go to school with some dude. You can't stand the guy. So you get into a ship, you travel 3,000 miles away, and you live on an island all by yourself. 5 years later, the guy you hated from college shows up with 400 people just like him. That is exactly what happened. John Winthrop walked up to Reverend William Blackston and says, "Dude, Bill, remember me from college, John?" And Reverend William Blackston looks at him and says, "Yeah, John, what up?" Because he didn't like him. Well, John Winthrop looks at Reverend William Blackston and says, "Dude, you got a bunch of fresh water. I got 400 Puritans. What do you say? Can we stay?" And Reverend William Blackston looks at John Winthrop and says, "John, I got to be honest with you, man. I don't like you. I didn't like you in college. I really don't like your puritanical beliefs. But I am a man of God. And because of that, I'm willing to share my water with you guys if and only if you guys build your houses way on the other side of the island in the north end where they're going to put the Italian restaurants in 100 years.
Yeah.
And that was the agreement.
I don't know
Let's go
what
back
that
to our
is.
map, shall we?
Building-
Reverend William Blackston's living on Boston Common all by himself.
Oh, yeah.
The Puritans settled in the north end, making it the very first residential neighborhood, now home to over 100 Italian restaurants. 1.5 miles of land, 400 people here, one guy here. Problem solved, right? No, the Puritans, they took over the place. The first thing they did was they changed the name from Shawmut to Boston because all 400 Puritans came from Boston, England. They left Boston, England, they moved here, they said, well, we used to live in Boston, now we live here, gotta call it Boston, and that's how Boston got its name. 4 years later, they passed a law that said anyone that lived in Boston had to go to the Puritan church. Well, Reverend William Blackson wasn't about to go to a Puritan church because he was an Anglican. So they said to him, they said, dude, if you don't go to church for 8 to 10 hours on Sunday, you have to go to jail. And he said, that's ridiculous. I'm not going to go to a Puritan church. I'm certainly not going to go to jail. I'm going to sell you my land, and I'm going to move to Rhode Island. Now, that's a great idea. The problem was, of the 2,000 Puritans at the time, not a single one of them had enough money to buy 52 acres of land. So they made a common fund for the common man to purchase the common land, and they called it Boston Common. See how I did that? Boston is called Boston because it came from Boston, England. The common is common because it was common land for the common man using a common fund. The street that we're on right now, it is long, it's straight, it's flat, it's wide. What does that mean? It used to be water. This street is called Charles Street, and it's called Charles Street because it used to be the Charles River. Yeah, that's Puritan naming laws. Keep it simple. We have a hill. We put a beacon on top of it. What did we call that hill? Beacon Hill. There you go. Over here on our right-hand side, Boston Common, 1634, oldest public park in America. On our left-hand side, Boston Public Garden, 1837, oldest public park, botanical garden in its original location. 203 years separate these two parks because to our right, that's the original Shawmut Peninsula. Directly below us used to be the Charles River, and from here all the way to Fenway Park to our left is man-made land. I'll tell you a little bit more about that later. In the Boston Public Garden right here, we have 400 different trees. 300 different species of trees from all over the world. Something is in bloom almost all year round. The very first public display of tulips happened here back in the 1800s, about 24,000 every year now. And in the center of the garden, from April until Labor Day every year, we have an icon of the city of Boston, the swan boat. You being from Allston, you've seen the swan boats, right? Yeah. Have you been on the swan boat? Oh my God, really? Oh my God, it's like $4, man. So it's a gunboat. Yeah, very different. Very different. Actually, went on the swan boat for my birthday, and the owner gave me 50 free tickets to get on it. Coming up over here on the left-hand side, there's going to be some statues on the corner. From the Massachusetts State Children's Book, Make Way for Ducklings. Second sidewalk over, there's kids all over them. There's 9 little ducklings on that sidewalk over there. That is Mother Mallard and Jack-Cack, Lack-Mack, Knack, Coack, Mack, and Quack. Take a look down the sidewalk right here on the left-hand side. See them? Mother Mallard and Jack-Cack, Lack-Mack, Knack, Coack, Mack, and Quack. From the Massachusetts State Children's Book, Make Way for Ducklings. Written by Robert McCloskey in 1942. And I know what you're thinking. If that's a happy duck family, where's the dad? Well, here at Boston Duck Tours, we have about 50 narrators. And some of them get a little bit snarky after 3,000 or 4,000 tours. And if you look at them and say, hey, there's a mom there and her 8 ducklings, but where's the dad? Mom, where's the dad? Where's the dad? I want to know, where's the dad? They might look at it, but it used to be a salty, brackish tidal marsh, about 8 to 10 feet deep. The rich people were leaving the island. They were going to the mainland. We didn't want to lose their tax dollars in the city, so we filled in the bay behind the city, and we called it the Back Bay. From here all the way to Fenway Park, a mile and a half, is all man-made land that we built because we didn't want to lose the rich people's tax dollars back in the mid-1800s. And we started right here in 1857, Arlington Street. The next street over is called Berkeley. After that, you have Clarendon, then Dartmouth, then Exeter, Fairfield, Gloucester, Hereford, Ipswich, Jersey, Kilmarnock, and Lansdowne Street. A through L, alphabetical. Quick, look to your left. Isn't that beautiful? Left, and when we do, we're going to have a little bit of deja vu. We're going to be driving between the two parks again. Remember, Boston Public Garden on our left, Boston Common on our right. 203 years separate the two parks because that was the original Shawmut Peninsula, that was the river, and that was the bay. You guys know all of that, right? Well, back in the 1700s, 100 years later, after they formed Boston Common, that was a campground. Does anybody here know who was camping there in the 1700s? About 3,000 British troops. Has anyone here ever heard of a poem called Paul Revere's Ride? Henry Wadsworth Longfellow, one if by land, two if by sea, I and the other shore shall be. When this light turns green, we're going to be turning onto the sea. Yep, the British were camped out right here on Boston Common. There were about 3,000 of them. And on April 18th of 1775, at 9 o'clock at night, 700 troops left this campground. They went down here to the beach. They got into rowboats right here on what is now the Charles River, but it used to be the Charles Street, but it used to be the Charles River. 700 British troops got into rowboats right here on the Charles River. They rowed their boats across the Charles River, marched to Lexington and Concord for the shocker around the world. According to Henry Wadsworth Longfellow in a poem called Paul Revere's Ride, sorry about the coffee, folks. One if by land, two if by sea, I on the other shore shall be. Right now we are driving on the sea. This is where the British got into their boats on the night of the midnight ride of Paul Revere. Now that poem from start to finish though is lies. It was not one if by land, two if by sea. It was one if by land, two if by river, the Charles River. The next line, I on the other shore shall be, meaning that Paul Revere was on the other side of the river looking for two lanterns held up in the Old North Church. Not true. Paul Revere was over here on Boston Common. He was a hired spy paid by the Sons of Liberty to watch the British troops. Paul Revere saw the British troops getting into their boats, went running up Beacon Hill, down to the north end, went to his friend Robert Newman at the Old North Church, and Paul Revere looked at Robert Newman and said, Bob, you got keys to the church. I have 40 friends in the militia on the other side of the river. I want you to go to the top of the steeple, hold up two lanterns, so that my 40 friends will know the British troops are crossing the river. On the night of the midnight ride, Paul Revere was not looking for a signal. He was the signal, and it wasn't even a midnight ride. It happened at 9:30. Yeah, that poem from start to finish is lies. Not one if by land, two if by sea. It was one if by land, two if by river. Paul Revere was not looking for a signal. He was the signal, and it wasn't even midnight. It was 9:30. My favorite fact, no one yelled out, the British are coming.
Oh, you know this.
No one. Everybody thinks Paul Revere yelled out, the British are coming. The British are coming. Not true. Nope. But
I think it was the regulars.
the regulars, yep, they may have yelled out the regulars are on the move, but that sounds like a Metamucil line. Checking to see who's paying attention. Thank you very much. And what?
They tell you that at Paul Revere's house.
No way, really? Did they talk about Metamucil at Paul Revere's house? No, they do not. That's my joke. Thank you very much. I'm very proud of that one. Some of the jokes are actually borrowed from other narrators, but the Metamucil thing, I made that one. If they're using it at Paul Revere's house, I want my royalties. So you guys did Paul Revere's house, huh?
Oh, a couple years ago.
Oh, it's awesome, isn't it?
Yeah.
I love Paul Revere's house. You know, it was 100 years old when we bought it. Yeah, and it's the oldest wooden structure in the city of Boston. It was built in the 1600s. Yeah, it's only $5 to go in. That's a pretty good bargain.
We should go again.
You totally should. It's awesome. Yeah, just a few blocks away, you got the Old North Church. That's about $10 for a guided tour. That's a pretty good deal as well. There's a bunch of free things in Boston, though, too. You can go to the Boston Public Library. That's the second largest library in the United States. 17 million books. That's a free walking tour. The Massachusetts State House on top of Beacon Hill, also right up here, also a free walking tour. Monday through Friday, 9:30 to 3:30, go into the State House. They have a free tour. It's really cool. I've done it 3 times. This neighborhood,
The red line goes up.
This neighborhood
Goes up the
between
street.
1800 and 1820. It is considered to be the best preserved Federalist neighborhood anywhere in the United States of America.
There's the
We have
Capitol
a
right
single
there.
family home in this neighborhood is on average about $20 million. I'll tell you a little bit more about that in a minute. Right on the left-hand side, we have the Massachusetts State House. The gold dome on top is real gold. And as I just mentioned, free walking tours every day, Monday through Friday. On our right-hand side, we have the Robert Gould Shaw Memorial. That is the Fighting 54th, the very first all-volunteer African-American fighting force to fight the South in the Civil War. If you've seen the movie Glory, it's about those guys. Remember that monument. That's where you want to go for the entrance for the free tours right there. The General Hooker entrance, Monday through Friday, 9:30 to 3:30. The guy up on the horse, that's General Joseph Hooker, the Civil War general. On our left-hand side is my friend Mary. Mary was a Quaker living in Puritan Boston, and that was against the law. Yep. So she was kicked out of town 3 times. In 1660, Mary Dyer was sent to Providence, Rhode Island. Yep, she knows all about that community about this one. Mary Dyer was sent to Providence, Rhode Island, and she came back 3 times. Constitution, he remembered Mary Dyer. And because of Mary, we have freedom of speech and freedom of religion here in the United States. Over here on the left-hand side, this is the north slope of Beacon Hill. As I mentioned earlier, a single-family home on average is about $20 million in a very expensive neighborhood. But that's not what's important about this neighborhood. What's important about this neighborhood is the fact that it's considered to be the best preserved Federalist neighborhood in the United States. In this neighborhood, you will find the oldest African-American schoolhouse, the oldest African-American meeting house, and stops to the Underground Railroad. How do you find those things? Go to the Robert Gould Shaw Memorial. Right across the street from the State House, Robert Gould Shaw Memorial. Go there at 1 o'clock in the afternoon, and the Boston Park Rangers will take you on a free walking tour through this neighborhood. It's called the Black Heritage Trail, and I highly recommend it, because stepping into this neighborhood is literally like stepping back in time. How many free things did we give you so far? You got the Boston Public Library, you got the Massachusetts State House, you have the Black Heritage Trail. The USS Constitution, unfortunately, is closed right now for some reason. I don't know why. I just saw that on the internet the other day. But the Bunker Hill Monument, that's free to visit as well. The Bunker Hill Monument Museum, that's also free to visit. Are you making a video of me? Are you planning on putting me on YouTube soon? Yeah, because you would be the first one. What about on Smooth? That's how it's spelled. The N is not capitalized. Has anybody ever noticed that before? No. 56,000 locations later, nobody never noticed it. You know why it's not capitalized? For the longest time, it drove me nuts. Like I just mentioned, I've done about 4,000 tours. Well, the first 2,000 tours, I had no idea. And every single day, going by these 7-Elevens, there's 23 on the tour route. Yeah, and I go past the 7-Eleven. While I'm looking at this, you guys are looking at the historic church over here where Paul Revere went to church. Yeah, that church over here is called the Old West Church. That was Paul Revere's church. That's where the signaling system was supposed to happen. When the British heard about the signaling system, they tore the steeple down and they burnt it. Also in the Old West Church, that was a stop to the Underground Railroad. And down in the basement of that church is where John F. Kennedy voted for president. But right now, all you guys are thinking about is why is the N not capitalized? Am I right? The N is not capitalized because the man who started 7-Eleven was married. He went to his wife, said, honey, I'm going to open a convenience store. It's going to open at 7 o'clock in the morning instead of closing at 11 o'clock at night. She's like, well, that makes sense. Yeah, 7-Eleven. Get it? Yeah. Yep, she said, I think you're going to be very successful, but don't you think maybe the capital N on your logo is a little bit too pointy? It was obtrusive to his wife's eyes. So we went back to the printers, took the capital N off, put a lowercase n on, but made it the same height so nobody would ever notice. Went back to his wife and said, honey, I changed the logo, what do you think? And she said, oh my God, that looks so much better, I love you. And that is the number one reason why I will never get married. Yeah, round of applause for Emily from Springfield, Illinois for telling me that story. She was on my tour about 4 years ago, sitting all the way in the back left-hand side. She was like, I know why the N's not capitalized. I said, you are my hero. After thousands of tours, I'm like, why? All right, we're getting ready to turn left into a neighborhood. It's called the West End. If we were to go straight, we would go to the North End, the largest little Italy in the United States, the oldest residential neighborhood in Boston, and it used to be the second busiest shipping port. Unfortunately, the streets are too narrow for the ducks. So we're going into the West End, where the people who worked at the shipping port used to live over here. Now, if you look over here to your left-hand side, there's a museum right there called the West End Museum. Why is there a museum for a neighborhood? Because the neighborhood doesn't exist anymore. From the mid-1800s up until 1950, the neighborhood we're about to drive into was a clean, safe, vibrant, immigrant, working-class neighborhood. Hundreds and hundreds of row houses, row after row after row. Little tiny tenement houses, 3 and 4 stories tall, made out of brick. And at any given time, you might have an Italian family on the first floor, an Irish family on the second floor, maybe a family from Ukraine on the third floor, while a Scottish guy is carrying the ice up to the top floor for the ice chest. This neighborhood was torn down in 1950 because of a thing called greed. But prior to this neighborhood being torn down, it was nicknamed the greatest neighborhood this side of heaven. And if you want to know what it looked like, take a look at this building right here. It's on our left-hand side. Right there on our left-hand side, that little brick building right there was one of hundreds. There were 3,000 families that lived here, and as you can see on the wall right there, they nicknamed their neighborhood the greatest neighborhood this side of heaven. The people that lived here, 3,000 families, loved their neighborhood. 90% of them worked about a quarter of a mile to our right at the busiest shipping port in North America, and they all had 2 things in common. They came from somewhere else, and they were looking for a better life in America. This was America's melting pot. In 1950, the entire neighborhood was wiped clean from the face of the earth, right down to the dirt, with the exception of that last tenement house. Why? I have no idea. That's the one that stands. That being said, how was it torn down? Greed. A very greedy politician. His name was Mayor Hines. Heard about a thing called urban renewal, where you can tear down slums, the federal government would help you pay for it, and then you can replace them with high-rise condos that brought in by the tax dollars from the city. Well, this wasn't a slum. This was a clean, safe neighborhood. People loved it. They nicknamed it the greatest neighborhood this side of heaven. So how did the mayor pull it off? He stopped collecting the trash. And when he stopped collecting the trash, a couple of months later, he invited in the federal inspectors. They saw the piles of trash. They saw the rats all over those piles of trash and said, yep, this is a slum. Here's your check. Tear it down. And 3,000 families lost their homes forever. Now, a very famous man that grew up in this neighborhood, you may have heard of him. He was pretty popular back in the late 60s and the early 1970s. He was on a television show called Star Trek. You have a guy named Leonard Nimoy, Mr. Spock from Star Trek. He grew up in this neighborhood about 2 blocks to our left. And he loved this neighborhood. 3 years before he died, he came back to Boston with his son Adam, and they made a documentary all about this neighborhood. If you want to know what this neighborhood used to look like back in the late 1800s when it was America's melting pot, go to YouTube. It's a 29-minute video, and it's called Leonard Nimoy's Boston. It's all about this neighborhood.
That's cool.
Now, that being said, Leonard Nimoy loved this neighborhood. There was actually a museum back there. He did help fund it. He didn't help set it up, but he did help donate a little bit of money to it. He made the documentary about this neighborhood, and just like you guys, he took a duck tour. Yeah, we had my friend Sergeant Meatball as his narrator. And when my friend Mike said Leonard Nimoy grew up in Boston, Leonard Nimoy all the way in the back wearing a cowboy hat and dark sunglasses went like this. And he realized that he had Leonard Nimoy in his tour. That being said, when he comes up out of the water, they're going to drive right about 100 yards away. We got a duck. The beautiful thing is, when we're on the water, that travels. So we're going to do this. 30 people on board, 7 days a week, 8 months out of the year. And I don't know if you guys ever heard of a team called the New England Patriots. And we had a guy named Tom Brady who was here for about 20 years. He won about half a dozen Super Bowls. While Tom Brady was here, we sold more tickets than the New England Patriots did. Yeah, we have over 600,000 guests per year that take us up to Tally! 600,000 guests per year that take us up to we are the largest and newest tournament in the entire world. The reason why I'm stressing that so much is I don't know if you guys caught this or not, but I love my job and I could not do it without you guys. So thank you very much for being here. Sorry about the coughing. It's not every day. Thank God I'll be a different one. Are you making a video of me again?
Yeah.
You couldn't drive my duck when you were 40 on land. You would have put that wrong when I was down in the water.
No, I just need to save my battery.
What's your name, my friend?
Cal?
Cal? Do you have a YouTube channel?
Yeah.
How many followers do you have, Cal?
I think 128 or 29.
128 or 29?
Yeah.
That's pretty good. How old are you?
10.
What?
10.
At 10?
Mm-hmm.
Lord, man.
Scary.